Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video on this channel. Today, as requested from a very good friend of mine, we are doing the beginner's guide to Formula 1. As some people who watch this channel may not know enough about Formula 1, or they are into the, getting into the sport for the very first time. So before I get into this video, the statistics for the last video, 5 things that are coming to the F1 game and things that are in the F1 game. 55% of you who were watching the last video were not subscribed, so please click that subscribe button. It only takes a second and it will really help improve the channel. And as we are filming the first ever episode of the official podcast this Sunday, I really hope you subscribe so that you don't miss that as well. So, as I usually do, I've written my points on my phone, and as I usually do with all of these videos, they are unedited, so the stuttering and the jittering will you hopefully be used to by now if you've watched my videos from the start. So, beginner's guide to F1, let us go, and I will timestamp the chapters down below so that you can skip ahead to the bits that you want to learn about, or maybe you just want to skip past the bits that you already know and there's something new that you want to know about. It will be timestamped in the video today. So the first thing we need to talk about is how was F1 created, when was it created, and where was the first ever race. So Formula 1 was created in the early 1900s, but the official name Formula 1 didn't come into play until 1929. However, they were hosting Formula 1 races before that time, just not under that official title. The first race was held in France. I can't remember the exact circuit, but I will tag the website down below so you can check it out for yourself. Obviously, back then, the racing cars of the era were not up to the standard that modern Formula 1 cars are now, and obviously the circuits had grass on the side and were bumpy on some things, but obviously the technology of the early 1900s are not as advanced as they are now. On to the next thing. What are the rules of F1? I will also split this into 4 different sections so that you guys can follow along and skip and whatever. The first one is how they choose the circuits and how they make the calendar. Obviously, an F1 race, you can't have a Formula 1 season without racetracks, and you can't have racetracks without having a calendar. So, taking this season for example, you had a 24 race calendar with Bahrain as the start point and Abu Dhabi as the end point. Excuse my dog in the background. And so, some race circuits have contracts. For example, the Monaco Grand Prix contract ends next year, I believe, and that means the circuit will no longer be on the calendar. Or other tracks like China or Vietnam, due to coronavirus a couple years ago, obviously they were taken off the calendar due to the amount of COVID cases in that area. And so the circuit changes and the dates change and flow throughout that circuit, throughout the calendar. The second thing I put in a previous video, which I'll link to down below, which is the budget cap, when Red Bull had their controversy and everything like that. The budget cap is basically where each team, from Red Bull to Haas, they all have a set budget that they cannot go over. So I think the set budget is about $260 million or something. And each team has a certain budget to build their car for the next season. However, they are not allowed to oversee that budget, otherwise there are penalty points involved. And these penalties could be either points deducted, championships deducted, not allowed to take part in certain races, certain events, and obviously these can be catastrophic, or people can actually lose points on their racing license, which means they can lose their seats altogether, which is obviously very, very bad for the sport, as we want clean racing and we don't really like cheating. And so the other side of that budget cap is the fact that a team like Red Bull will have the maximum amount of money because they won the championship last season, which means they have the maximum amount of money to spend on the car for this season, from last season to this season. However, Williams, who finished rock bottom last season, will have the minimum amount of money to build their car. But obviously the little teams, Aston Martin's a great example, they always focus on the future instead of the current seasons, so that they can put their development in and their research for long-term investments rather than short-term investments. The next one is the different type of flags in terms of the rules of the sport. Obviously you've got the checkered flag, which is the start, which is the finish one. But then you've got the more difficult ones. You've got blue flags, yellow flags, red flags, green flags, and then the red and yellow flag. And the black flag. So the black flag, if you've ever done karting before, the black flag means you are disqualified and you are out of that session. The yellow flag, when that waves, if a single yellow flag is waved by the marshals, it means there is an incident on circuit and you just have to slow your speed down to 30% of the proper racing speed. If they are waving 2 yellow flags, it means there is a serious incident on track and there is the possibility of a safety car. Obviously the safety car comes out. The virtual safety car is when you have to slow your cars down to a walking pace or about 70 miles an hour. And then the proper safety car is when the safety car pulls out and they do a couple laps under the safety car until the incident is cleared. The blue flag is to warn slower cars that there are faster cars approaching from behind you. So for example, if Verstappen is storming into the lead, then Alexander Albon, who's at the back, will be warned that Max Verstappen is coming behind him, so the car has to slow down and let Max through, and then he carries on with his racing. And then obviously the green flag is go again, and then the red and yellow flag I think means that it's like a serious hazard on track, and then they bring out the red flag, which stops the session altogether. The next bit is a little bit complicated, so try and follow on with this. It's the tyre rules and the mandatory pit stops that are involved in Formula 1. So Formula 1 races are usually around 60-something, 50 laps long or whatever. And so there are usually, in those races, there is a mandatory one-stop pit strategy, but sometimes teams can extend to a 2-stop if they feel like the tyres are degrading too fast, or if they want to switch up the strategy and go for something different. There are 3 dry tyres, mandatory, that every team should use throughout the weekend, and there are 2 wet tyres. The wet tyres are the intermediates, which is the crossover from rain to dry, and you've got full racing slicks, which are for the proper torrential rain conditions. And there's 3 the softer tyre conditions, the dry tyres. You've got the red-walled soft tyre, the yellow-walled medium tyre, and the white-walled hard tyre. The soft tyre degrades quickly, but it's the grippiest and the fastest tyre, and the white-walled hard tyres have the most or the least tyre wear, but they are the slipperiest of the 3 tyres involved. Next, third point is the weekend format itself. I sort of covered the race distance, but a Formula 1 weekend without the sprints, which I'll talk about in a second, the weekend format without the sprints usually entails 3 practice sessions, which usually occur on the Thursday and the Friday morning. You've got qualifying, which is 3 sessions. First session's 18 minutes, second is 15 minutes, and third is 12 minutes. And then you've got the race, which I said before is an average of 50 to 60, 70 laps. However, If it's a shorter track like Austria or Monaco, you get more laps, so into the 70s, like 60, 68, 71 sorts of laps. But if it's longer like Spa or Hungary, you get shorter laps, so it's usually about 50 to 55 laps. As obviously the further the distance, it all balances itself out in the long run. And in the practice sessions, the drivers and the teams use that to basically analyse how the car performs on the different tyres and work on their strategy for the race. And number 4, how the points are rewarded after each race. So, first gets 25 and 10 gets 1. Only the top 10 drivers get points, and 11th down to 20th, they don't get points. However, if there's a sprint weekend and in the sprint race, it's only the top 8 drivers that get points. I don't know why they do that. It's a little bit confusing, but they are, the FIA are working on that to try and make it a bit more understandable through the sprint weekends. And the points get split into 2 championships. You've got the Drivers' Championship, which is just for the drivers to earn their individual points to see who will win and get top spot. And then you've got the Constructors' Championship, which is the 2 drivers of the team working together to combine their points, and that sets the Constructors' Championship. Obviously, Red Bull won it last year and should win it this year as well. And the final point to make of this video is the teams and the drivers. So for any of you who are new to Formula 1 and do not know who the teams are Red Bull Racing, Scuderia Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, Haas, Williams, Aston Martin, McLaren. I've forgotten the other 2. I can't remember. I can't remember the other 2, but they are, all of those things are there. Oh yeah, AlphaTauri, and then there's one more which I can't really remember. However, with those, and there's 20 drivers. Oh yeah, that final team was Alfa Romeo. Then the 20 drivers, obviously Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez for Red Bull, Hamilton and Russell for Mercedes, Sainz and Leclerc for Ferrari, Magnussen and Hülkenberg for Haas. You've got Stroll and Fernando Alonso for Aston Martin, Guan Yu Zhou and Valtteri Bottas for Alfa Romeo. You've got Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri for McLaren, Yuki Tsunoda, Nick De Vries for AlphaTauri, and you've got Pierre Gasly, Ocon for Alpine, and then you have Logan Sargent and Alexander Albon for Williams. And for any of you new and want to get into F1, my good mate, I'm looking at you here. There is another race on this weekend, and it's looking quite spicy. It is the Imola Grand Prix, famous for causing Ayrton Senna's death in 1994. And it's also planning to be a thundery, wet, heavy rain race this weekend. So it will throw the order around. And for a newbie who's new to Formula 1, wet races are usually the best races to watch because it throws the order up and the same people usually don't win it every time. So I'd stress, go and watch that. It'll be, if you don't have Sky and whatever, the highlights will be on at 5:30 on Channel 4 on Sunday, and qualifying will be on from 5:30 till 7 on Saturday. That is the end of the video. There is the beginner's guide to F1. I might have made it a little bit too advanced, but that's just my nerdiness coming out. Hopefully like this video, smash the subscribe button, and in the next few days I will be making another video revealing the theme for Sunday's podcast. So subscribe, you don't want to miss that video, and I'll catch you in the next one.